Okay, for Thursday's Bible, it's Acts 23. It's the end of this third journey thing. Test tomorrow, that'll be Friday. You guys can do it. It's all good. Okay, so on Acts 22, we left Paul before the Sanhedrin, and they were accusing him of doing some screwball stuff. And so then Paul's in front of the Sanhedrin. Now, why did Rome put him in front of him? Well, Rome wants to know what in the world's going on here. And Paul says, he looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." At this, the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Okay, what's going on there? Well, the way he spoke was disrespectful to the high priest. And even though he knows that they were wrong, he knows that that's disrespectful, which leads us to kind of believe that in that other video I told you about his thorn, they wonder if he's got really bad eyesight. Like he didn't know he was talking to the high priest, because he says, then Paul said to them, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall." He still doesn't know he's talking to the high priest. "You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck." Those who were standing near Paul said, "You dare insult God's high priest?" And then Paul goes really humble there and goes, "Oh, brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest, for it is written, 'Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people.'" So he apologizes. He knows that that was wrong, which also kind of shows that he kind of got a flair for a temper, right? And then Paul does something that's kind of crafty, and what he does is he starts a fight among them. The Pharisees believe in a resurrection, in angels, in spirits, things like that. The Sadducees are more, they would argue they're more level-headed and they don't get into all that garbage. And they don't believe in resurrection, all that foolishness. They're going to be more straightforward with stuff, and they're going to be the ones that try to get along with the Romans a little bit more to achieve more power. And Paul's like, "Hey, I'm being mistreated here because," what does he say here? "I am a Pharisee, I'm the son of a Pharisee, and I stand on trial because of my hope in the resurrection of the dead." And the Pharisees are all going to, he knows they're going to react this way. They're like, "Oh yeah, that's great. We don't see anything wrong with him." And then the Sadducees, "Are you kidding me? You know, this guy needs to be put to death, da 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 da." So he starts an argument between them. And then they're about ready to rip him apart. Anyway, they take Paul away and put him in the barracks to keep him safe. It's really a good thing right now. The Romans are offering him protection. If the Romans weren't in charge or didn't step in time, Paul would be dead by now. And then Paul is visited by the Lord, and the Lord says to him, "Take courage. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you also testify in Rome." So he's telling Paul, "You're going to get there. I'm going to get you to Rome." And then there's a plot to kill Paul. So they had this pre-trial, right? And then a bunch of guys who are very zealous for Judaism, there's 40 of them that say they take a vow that they won't eat or drink until they kill Paul, which probably means they're, I don't know if they died of starvation later on, or dehydration first. They say, "Hey, Sanhedrin, elders, teachers, ask that you get to see Paul again on another pre-trial, and because you need to understand some more things about him. So ask the Romans that. And on his way to being brought to wherever you guys are going to question him, we'll ambush him, jump out of nowhere, and kill him. And that way it'll all just be put to rest." But that gets found out by Paul's sister's son, so it would be Paul's nephew. Overhears the plot, goes to where Paul's being kept, tells them, and then Paul says, "Hey, go right to the commander, tell him what you told me." And he was like, "Hey, guess what? They're going to ambush Paul on his way to being questioned, and they're going to kill him." Now, why would the commander care that much? I mean, these Jews are giving him a hard time. Might as well just let him have Paul. Well, it would make Rome look bad, like that they couldn't control their own trials. It would be really degrading to them to get jumped by 40 guys. So they always had to strike an image of strength. So right away, when he learns about this, he says, take a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, and 200 spearmen. That's 470 people. And leave at 9 o'clock tonight. And send him from Jerusalem to Caesarea. Now, most of those guys took him part way and then turned back. But then the cavalry that made the horsemen, the 70 horsemen, continued with him all the way down to Caesarea, where the governor Felix was. And he would be above this commander in Jerusalem. And then he sends a letter, which actually gets written here in Acts, about what's going on and explains everything. And so then, if the accusers, the Sanhedrin and the Pharisees and so on, if they want to bring charges against Paul, now they've got to go from Jerusalem to Caesarea, where it would be much more fortified, and they would have a hard time getting to Paul there. So Paul's going to end up staying in jail for a while in Caesarea, which is a good thing. And he probably ends up writing a couple books there too. Okay? As far as the notes go, the last ones I've got are 22 verse 30 through 23:11. A pretrial was given to Paul as he was made to stand in front of the Sanhedrin, that's the Pharisees and Sadducees. Paul is struck in the mouth for disrespecting the chief priest. Paul apologizes. Then he starts a fight between the Pharisees and the Sadducees by saying he's on trial for believing in a resurrection. The Lord says Paul must testify in Rome. Then the next one, 23 verse 12 through 22. 40 angry Jews plotted to ambush Paul and kill him. The Romans were told about the plot by Paul's nephew. And then the last note section, Paul was sent to Caesarea guarded by 270 men. Governor Felix in Caesarea held Paul until his accusers could come and make their case against him. Okay? All right, hopefully that helps out and that you're ready for that test. Make sure you know the map. This way, up and around, and back to Troas, Assos, Mytilene, Chios, Samos. You know, you might want to put those in order and maybe by the first letter and make some sort of phrase out of it. It's important to know how to study because in junior high you'll need those little tools. So hopefully that works out.